CarolinaPrepper.com. If you're looking for quality food storage for hiking, fishing, hunting, basic survival needs, or just for everyday use, check out our food storage line at CarolinaPrepper.com. We also carry other fine quality products, such as our can concealment holsters for men and women. Keeping your firearm under cover and within reach puts confidence in your hands in any situation. Our products are 100% American made. Check us out today at CarolinaPrepper.com.
Knowles on the news. Susan Knowles.
Thank you so much for being here today on Knowles on the News. We're still, as you know, dealing with everything that has happened, kind of trying to come to grips with everything that happened in Las Vegas. It's something that I don't think we're going to get over for a very long period of time. I don't think it's something that will never make sense to us, even when all of the evidence is put out there. And we're not getting a lot of evidence, although we've been given a lot of information about what happened that night. And I know still some people aren't satisfied with that. They want more. You know, the media wants more. People that I've seen on social media want more. And I think for now, you know, a lot of this is we need to be looking at the families of those that have died, that were killed that night in Las Vegas, families who are struggling to help loved ones who were injured that night recover. I think we want to be mindful of that, of the people that are suffering, and wish them our thoughts and our prayers that go with what we should be doing instead of being focused, as the left is, on gun control. Because that's all they can seemingly focus on when there's a tragedy. No matter what the tragedy, it's always a time for them to talk gun control. And this isn't a time to do that. This is a time to remember the families that are suffering. To remember the heroes that night who, unbelievably, some of the stories that are coming out and how they shielded people, how some people even died protecting their loved ones. It's an amazing tribute to who we are as Americans, who we really are as a people, as a nation. And I think that is something that we should emphasize. And although it won't be emphasized, you can be assured that the negative agenda of the left will be emphasized. And the mainstream media, the left mainstream media, will be emphasized. But, you know, looking at some of the victims, a number of them, a couple of them at least, were from San Diego. A young lady, 27 years old, Tina Frost, was shot in the right eye. She has lost her right eye. She is recovering. They're worried now from reports that she may have brain damage. There were people on the night of the shooting that were talking about seeing this woman who got shot in the head and how just devastating that was, and to see that happen. I was listening to everything on a scanner in real time. That was horrific. Listening to it, knowing that you couldn't help those individuals. I can't even imagine what the individuals that were there and going through it, how they were suffering. Also, a family law attorney and a criminal defense attorney, she was both, 42 years old, from San Diego, was killed. And we hear that there was a police officer and a fire department personnel they were also there, and they helped rescue people and bring them to safety. Just an absolute tragic loss, not only for Las Vegas, but for our country as a whole. To see the devastation, to know that one man, regardless of his motive, caused so much destruction. And while I don't want to focus on him, I think that it is kind of necessary to talk somewhat about him. You know, here's this man, 64 years old, no criminal past, who seemingly worked for, as an accountant for a while, worked for the post office for a while, had no mental illness in his background that we know of at this point, had a father who had mental illness in his background, according to reports, who had a girlfriend for several years that he had met in Las Vegas, had frequented Las Vegas. This same man, we're being told, it came in a very calculated, premeditated way, got a room that he knew was a high elevation, and seemingly for 3 days scoped out his target. And we know that he came in on a Thursday. There was a 3-day concert going on, country music festival, Friday, Saturday, and the last day was on Sunday. And we know that this shooter waited until the very last song of the last day to open fire on these innocent individuals who fled for their lives and some who lost their lives. What kind of person does that? And I don't buy this fact that there may have been some mental illness, although that's not really being talked about too much. For somebody to have been so cold and calculating. Now, I know people can be mentally ill and not know what they're doing, and people can be maniacal and still carry out things like this. But I don't want to give him that excuse. And I don't see anything in his history about that other than the fact that we're being told now that he had, in the last month or so, been prescribed anti-anxiety medication. That certainly doesn't lend itself necessarily to any type of mental illness that is as severe as would make one do what he did. I find it interesting that when you see this act, and again, our definitions of terrorism tend to always have to lean to one thing. It's either terrorism because it's connected to ISIS or it's not terrorism. Well, and that's just not true. There could be, the act itself, if it causes people to feel terror and horror, that's terrorism. That's the definition in the dictionary of terrorism. It doesn't have to be ISIS-led or, some connection of getting money from ISIS or what have you. It's a terrorist attack. What happened at the Mandalay Bay in Las Vegas and shooting down on those people at the Country Music Festival was a terrorist attack, plain and simple. And I guess the only question is, was this man somehow connected to ISIS to make it an international terrorist attack? And I think, a lot of people, the FBI certainly, right off the bat, oh no connection, done, over with. I wrote an article that's up on SUSANKNOWLES.com, and I'm basically wondering, what is the FBI's reluctance to look into that, and especially look into that before making that type of conclusion? I mean, it hadn't been but maybe an hour, and we've already concluded that there's no way that this could have been anything connected with ISIS. And I have to differ with that, because, almost immediately we get a statement issued from ISIS. I think there were 2 statements issued from ISIS saying that this man was somebody that they had given a name, basically in Arab, which means, the American. And I don't know what else it means, but I know enough to know that it meant the American. And they said, they claimed responsibility for being connected with it. And immediately you hear people say, oh yeah, but that's what ISIS does. They want to be popular. They want to have a connection to anything that's big. No, they don't. That hasn't not always been the truth. That is not, there's nothing to show that that's the truth. At times there have been massacres, huge, that they have not claimed responsibility for. There have been small incidents that they have claimed responsibility for. So that doesn't hold up. And we're finding typically that ISIS doesn't say something like that unless they are involved. Now, could they make the mistake once or twice? Could they be lying? Yes, all of that's true. They could be. But the pattern is that ISIS only takes responsibility for those things that they are involved in some way. Now, again, that doesn't mean that they paid this man to do this or they helped this man or anything else. He could have been radicalized. They claim that that it was just, recently, months ago, that he converted to Islam. Now, again, that's something that you typically don't hear from people that, practice the faith, quote unquote, unless they have some reason for saying that. They're not going to claim that he converted to Islam. It doesn't make sense that they would claim that if that were not true. I think they're very careful about, Allah and all that. They don't want to do anything that might disrespect their God. And so, I take them at their word for that, first and foremost. And I'm not concluding anything, but I'm saying it certainly gives me enough information, kind of all I need to know, that tells me that the FBI needs to look into it further and not just discount it. Also, the number of weapons that were involved, the premeditated efforts that were undertaken to make this happen. The fact that this was a country music festival where stereotypically you would perhaps assume that there were mostly conservatives that were attending that concert. And I think others that I've done research on, feel the same way, that this isn't something that ISIS comes out on their news outlet, AMAQ, A-M-A-Q. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. Frankly, I don't care because it is ISIS. But they usually, issue the statements, and that's their propaganda wing. That's what they want people to see. And they typically don't lie to their own people about those types of things, at least. And I also think it's interesting, again, a couple of weeks ago, I did a report on how ISIS was, putting the terrorist bombs on children. They're using them as terrorists now because they're running out of people. And I guess that's what happens when you kill people, right? When you kill your own people, you kind of run out of bodies to strap bombs onto so you can go blow people up and yourself. But interestingly enough, what they were doing is they were giving these children anti-anxiety medications so that they could go and do this type of thing. And again, not saying conclusively that this individual in Las Vegas was connected to ISIS, but with the information that we do know, I think we should still be investigating it. And I'm hoping that the FBI is just telling us that, and they truly are investigating. There was also information that came out that before the shooting, before the weekend started, that ISIS said it had issued a statement to their followers saying, stay out of the U.S., Canada, and I may have been Europe, places in public places over the weekend. Oh, really? Why would they be saying that? And it's also interesting, and I'm not able to really find out if this is accurate, although I've seen it. I have no reason to doubt the person that was saying it in the video. But there are no resources to corroborate it. But there's the issue of the woman who allegedly came up before all of this happened and told people that they were going to die. Now, I don't know if she was connected to the shooter in Las Vegas or if she was just somebody who wanted to, maybe she was mentally ill. I don't know. I was surprised that she was led away. I would imagine that the police know her name. Maybe they know who she is. Maybe they were confident that, she was mentally ill. I don't know. But certainly that needs to be looked into. I just think there's so much that needs to be looked into that we're not hearing everything. And maybe that's a good thing. I don't think that the public needs to know everything or that information needs to get out there. Pictures were already leaked of what was supposedly was in the room, including the shooter's body. And the pictures that I saw, I only saw the bottom half of his body. I didn't see blood around his body. But I didn't see the entire picture. I did see weapons on the ground. And I think this is where kind of we have to be careful, because people want to start with the conspiracy theories. Now, I don't see mine as a conspiracy theory because I have reasons that, connect him potentially in some way to ISIS. Most especially because ISIS came out and claimed that he was one of them. But I also heard an audio of a man who called in to the Michael Savage show the other day after the shooting. Claimed to be a man who had been in the military. Claimed to also have known the shooter. Claimed to have lived next to him as a neighbor for a couple of years ago. And he was saying, there's absolutely no way that this man could have been the shooter. That he was a friendly guy. He sat in the driveway. He would wave at people. He was always nice. Well, that doesn't necessarily mean you're not a killer. I mean, there are a lot of people. Ted Bundy was nice, but Ted Bundy killed a lot of people. Maybe not all at once, but Ted Bundy was a serial killer. So niceness of someone or them not being nice isn't going to give you all the information that you need to determine whether or not they're a mass murderer. But he was also saying that, and again, he had no proof. It was just a feeling of his, and not even any factual information necessarily to back it up or to even say, this is why I'm feeling this way. He was sort of like, this is just my gut feeling. He thinks that all of this was done by somebody else, and that these guns and everything were just planted on this guy. Planted in the room, and they killed the guy and, tried to make him look like the one that did it. Again, the guy had no information that would lead anybody to believe that, but people have already started picking up on that and running with it. And then there's Alex Jones, who says, we have information that is Antifa. We found information that was in the hotel room. Not him specifically, but people who supposedly work for him or his contacts. Now, I'm not 100% discounting Antifa, but I certainly haven't seen anything to this point that would lead me to believe that this had anything to do with Antifa. Just because this isn't their typical MO. Doesn't mean their MO didn't change, but this isn't typically what they do. Typically, they have their little black masks. They are, are cowardly, hitting people with sticks and clubs and bricks and anything else they can find. They typically go to First Amendment type rallies. That seems more of their MO. Now, that being said, there is information out there that claims that it's coming from Antifa that says on November 4th they're going to start killing people, especially police officers. They want to kill the president. So it doesn't mean that things haven't changed. It just doesn't smack of an Antifa type event at this point. But this is something I also believe that the FBI needs to be looking into. It needs to be something, every single aspect of this needs to be looked into. Everything. But we shouldn't be, again, coming out with the conspiracy theories until we know a little bit more. I mean, there's information of there was a shooting, they were shooting out the fourth floor and the 12th floor, along with the 32nd floor. Okay. Well, there have been other reports from beholdisrael.org Amir Tsarfati, who you may know him from having formerly been with the Israeli military, who claims that the story about the 12th floor was actually a light that was flashing that could be seen hours after the shooting had stopped, and it appeared to be something totally different. Now, there was a video of a person, a woman, a cab driver, who basically kind of saw the same thing, saw a light out of the 12th floor. Some people have said, and there's no indication that the windows were blown out in the 12th floor. Some people said they're the 4th floor. There were lights in the 4th floor. They thought there was shooting in the 4th floor. Again, there's no indication the windows were blown out. There's no indication that the windows can open on the 4th floor. You know, most of these casinos, the windows don't open. So, I mean, I can't verify that the windows don't open, but I haven't seen any information, haven't heard any information coming from the sheriff's office that would lead me to believe that there was anything other than activity out of the 32nd floor. I will have to say it's a little strange to me that in some videos it looked like there may be some light off the rifle out of the 32nd floor, but I can't remember now if I actually saw that. I have seen other videos where people were down on the ground. I don't see any type of flash coming out of the 32nd floor. I'm not a gun expert either, so I don't know if there was something that he could have done to have prevented that. I don't know if it's typical for something that's been turned into an automatic rifle to do that. I just don't know. So I can't say one way or the other. And people are saying, yes, but look, you know, there has to be more shooters because there were so many indications that people were shot that night and people were killed in different places. Well, I was listening to the live feed. That was a police scanner that was going on at the time of the shooting. And I can tell you one thing for sure. There was utter chaos. I mentioned a minute ago about the woman who was in the taxi cab, the taxi driver. People ran out to her car and were screaming. They had come from the event, and they were just trying to get away from the event. And they were telling her there were hundreds of people dead. Now, possibly they saw these people fall on the ground that were trying to, take cover or just fall on the ground to stay in place until they could figure out what was going on. And they could have assumed those people were dead. And they were talking about, all the bullets and they were just running. And so, again, you can't expect people who are running for their lives to be accurate in a lot of things that they were seeing and things that they later said. I know there were calls that I heard on the scanner that were coming from various casinos. And it sounded like if you listened to them, that you thought that these terrorists, and I'll call them terrorists, if they were possible terrorists, were going down the strip and going into casinos and just killing people. It's what it sounded like. They were talking about injuries and seeing shooters and things of that nature. But when I was listening to them, and the dispatcher was talking on the phone to people and other police officers, perhaps, rather than people that were, making calls in. But one female especially was talking that there was shooting going on, and, they had seen a shooter at a certain casino. And the dispatcher said, have you yourself heard any gunshots and have seen any of this? And she said no. So basically what she was relaying was reports from others who said there was a shooter that they had seen, guns fired, and all that. Now, I'm not saying they made any of that up. I'm saying that in the event of all this happening and all the chaos and all the number of bullets that were being fired from an automatic weapon and another weapon that he was supposedly firing as well, of course there are ricochets. Of course you're going to think that you hear things. Of course you're going to think that you have seen things. And you could even think that people were injured and coming from a different place. I think those type of things that we really need, again, they need to be investigated. Absolutely need to be investigated. But I think a lot of people are listening to scanners and saying, okay, there's proof that there was another shooter. There's proof that there were other people involved. There's proof that other people were injured in a casino that was not connected to the Mandalay Bay event. And it sounds different when it's not in real time. I agree with that. But hearing it in real time, it makes sense to me of what was happening. It makes sense to me that people were talking about other shooters, other weapons being fired, when none of that was actually happening. But I don't dismiss it 100%. I do think it has to be looked into. All possibilities need to be sought out. I do remember at the time when I was listening to all of that, the person who was streaming it on social media was saying sometimes, this could be a distraction from somebody like, other terrorists that were trying to take the attention off the Mandalay Bay, where the shooter was. And so maybe to give him time to continue his shooting or give him time to leave, whatever the case may be. And at the time, I was thinking that's very plausible. It really is. But after the fact and after hearing people saying, too, again, that they had not themselves heard of any gunshots in their immediate vicinity, but had been told this by others, I'm not sure that was the case. I'm just not sure. I do hope we get more information, though. I mean, I really do. I think that, unlike the Democrats who want to run every time to anti-gun laws, we need to know what's out there. We need to know the enemy that may be coming for more people in America like there were at that event. Whether it's one person, 15 people, or more, we need to know what we're looking at. We need to know what the enemy is doing. And it's absolutely ridiculous to be sitting here talking again about gun control and how, it's the United States, we need to do something. We've got to take away, instead of coming right out and saying it, what they are saying is we want to take away all the guns. And if we do that, everything will be just great. Nobody's going to ever be killed again by a gun. And we know that's I can't even wrap my head around that type of illogical babble. I mean, I've really tried. I don't get it. And I don't think I'm ever going to get it. I don't know how anybody can sit there and say, if we take away the guns from law-abiding citizens, that the criminals are going to be law-abiding suddenly, somehow, and they're not going to kill you with the guns that they get. I mean, do these people think that, these criminals necessarily walk into Walmart and say, let me see what kind of guns you got there on the Walmarts that still sell the guns? Do they not think that their guns on the black market, do they not think that people can make makeshift guns, a sawed-off gun, whatever the case may be? I mean, I don't understand that. And these are people not, you can understand that from Europe saying that because they do say that a lot. I mean, on social media one time, this woman from France supposedly was telling me, you people have guns. And look at us. We don't have any problems. No, you just have people running over you with U-Hauls and stabbing you and trucks and all that. I mean, yeah, you're really safe. Right? If you had a person who had a gun, maybe they could protect you and defend you from those people and people who have guns. And I'm not trying to pick on people from France, but I'm just saying, when you say things that are just absolutely asinine, it's hard for me not to have that type of reaction. And they don't get it. I mean, people in the United States on the left, they don't get it. They don't understand that if you're disarmed, anything could happen to you. You know, our forefathers did that, so we wouldn't have a takeover ever again from our government. And yet, history repeats itself because people don't understand history, for one thing. They don't listen. They don't care. They think, oh, it'll never happen to me. And some individuals, it's because they've never had situations like this. They've never had an event that happened or where their lives were in danger. You know, Steve Scalise, who was shot over the summer at the baseball field, it turned out to be a left-leaning guy, which I think we're going to find out that this guy definitely was too, in Las Vegas. But Steve Scalise said, you know what? We need to be able to defend ourselves. You know, he knows that day, had he had a gun, maybe he would not have been in the hospital clinging to life at times, trying to survive. And I'm worried about our country. I really am. You know, when you see people, like two people on the House floor, Representative Seth Moulton and Catherine Clark, both Democrats, who basically wouldn't participate in a moment of silence in Las Vegas because instead of showing respect for those who had been injured and those of the families of those who had been killed, they wanted to make a political point. No, right now is the time to talk about gun control. Coming from the Democrats, that's what they said. You know, right now is the time to talk about it. No, right now is not the time to talk about it. Right now is the time for you to try to figure out how you lost your empathy, how you lost your compassion. And don't give me this about, this gun control is going to solve all of our problems. You know, what's going to be the next thing, Democrats? What is going to be the next thing that comes up that you're going to want to get rid of? Because you're on the wrong side of everything. Let me just say, and I'm not talking about every Democrat out there. I'm talking about those Democrats who are so far left that they can't see the forest for the trees. And I'll tell you what, I've been telling people, and I really do mean this, we are seeing so much like evil on the rise. And it's everywhere. From people like this man, the shooter, from people who have a disregard for human life, to absolute rudeness. You know, it's a varying degree of evil that we're seeing on the rise. And maybe evil isn't the most accurate word, but I don't know how else to describe it. I really don't. And I think it's going to get worse, what we're seeing. And people like the mainstream media and the liberal left, they're covering up the truth. They're covering up what's happened. And I'm not talking about they're not covering up any crimes of this killer in Las Vegas. I'm just talking about we can't get down to the truth anymore because the left has their own agenda. And so they cover up what needs to be seen, what we need to be working on. And you know, when I say that too, I'm including rhinos on the GOP side. Because they're nothing more to me than Democrats. They really are. This morning, in the midst of everything, we have the Senate Intelligence Committee coming out and giving us a little update on their Russia investigation. And they're talking about how people have worked, 6 to 7 days a week since January 23rd, and how all of this information has been uncovered, but they're really not sure about any of it, and it doesn't look like anything was actually, nothing really happened. My words, okay? Nothing really happened because the polls, the voting machines, all of that, nothing was infiltrated. Nothing got through. Nothing penetrated, right? So we just have a lot of supposition. We see that the Russians tried, according to, it was Mr. Burr that was talking, Congressman Burr, but it didn't sound like anything actually happened. And then he goes on to talk about, well, and then the media gave us a lot to look at. Yeah, I bet the media did. Did they give you any information about the DNC? Did they give you any information about how, the connection would have been there with the voting? Did they tell you anything about that? Did we even talk about, Podesta, Hillary, anybody? No, I don't think so. And while we're still talking about, this is all supposed to be about the election and the interference with the election, why are we still talking about Paul Manafort? Why are we going back years and years and years to look into Paul Manafort? Did he pay the Russians to interfere with the election? Okay, if he didn't, I don't know why you're still on Paul Manafort. I mean, I do, but I know why you're saying you're on Paul Manafort is totally different than the reasons you really are looking at Paul Manafort. Because you want to try to, you think that somehow that you're going to get so much information on Paul Manafort that he's going to sing out about the president. Oh, yes, the president, the collusion with Russia. He's going to be this canary who's going to tell all. And we're going to see Donald Trump, whisked away to some prison somewhere. Forget it. Quit wasting our taxpayer time and money. Get Mueller fired, and let's move on with the business at hand that needs to be looked at. We have so many other things that are important that we need to do. Healthcare. People, listen, and I know I'm speaking to the choir right now. You understand this. People will not be able to continue to afford their insurance under Obamacare. That is absolutely exploding and imploding all at the same time. You talk to people out there, average, everyday people, they can't afford it. Some people have said, I've been without coverage forever. I can't afford to pay for it. That's ridiculous. And there was a talk, a couple of weeks ago, maybe a week ago. I mean, everything moves so quickly anymore, you can't tell when everything happened. You just cannot keep it in your brain. There's too much going on. But there was talk that we were going to, that President Trump was going to sign an executive order allowing people to buy insurance across state lines. Now, stuff happened that hasn't been done. It needs to be done. It won't help everybody. It won't help people like me in my situation where, I'm in with a group from a company, right? Your employer getting insurance, they're probably not going to go across state lines and look for insurance. I would hope they would, but it may not happen. It's a big deal to do that. It takes a while as well. California would immediately, I know, if he signed that executive order, they would come out and make it somehow against the law for you to do that. I'm being a little sarcastic, but not really, knowing what California has done and continues to do. Ridiculous laws that they pass every single day. Those on the left, trying to make this a sanctuary state, trying to make everything just go against the president, on and on and on. But we need that. We also need tax reform. And who's going, against that? The Democrats, of course. Raise your hand if you understand that. The Democrats, of course. And why is that? Well, God forbid they put your own money back in your hands to do with it what you want to do. And I'll tell you something. When that money comes back to you, if and when this ever goes through, guess where that money is going to go? To pay for stupid things like Obamacare that are out of control. To try to keep up with taxes that are coming at you in your state that are, fighting everything that they can or paying for illegal immigrants, whatever the case may be. You don't think that the Democrats, number one, they don't want you to get your money back. They don't want the economy to flourish. Because if they do that and things are too good, well, they're not going to do well in the elections. Now, are they? So they want chaos, which they continue to get. They want the economy to be stagnant, which they're trying so desperately to do. And again, why do I say that? Because if you give somebody back a tax refund, they're going to spend the money. It's going to make the economy better. People are going to be buying things again. They don't want to see that happen. Democrats don't want to see that happen. That will make them look bad. That will make you understand that for 8 years, when you were trying to put food on the table and coming home from your third job because of Obama and what he did to the economy, that it didn't have to be that way. See, because a lot of those people who went through this type of economy under Obama, they didn't understand what it was like under Reagan, who gave all kinds of benefits to us, got the economy going, and on and on and on. They didn't remember that. So they have no idea. They just think, and you know, you talk to a Democrat, they'll think, oh my gosh, Obama was the best thing that ever happened to the United States. Again, illogical that you can't wrap your brain around, but they say it anyway. And they believe it. They absolutely believe that he was the best president ever. So, you know, you wonder why we're kind of in the position that we're in. How did our country get here? Well, 8 years of brainwashing America, you know, some that really fell for it and believed it, didn't help. You know, and it's amazing. I look around sometimes, and I'll tell you, St. Louis is a perfect example. Last night was like the 19th night, and I'm not throwing that number out there as an exaggeration. I mean, I think it literally was the 19th night of a protest in St. Louis. Now, typically these protests end in arrests. That may just be like, whoa, you're kidding me. People get arrested? I'm being sarcastic again. Yes, they get arrested. Now, for the people who are there, and I watch the scopes, I watch them again as they're happening. Last night, what happens? Well, they were exercising their First Amendment rights by blocking a freeway. Now, do I think that's a First Amendment right? No, I don't. I'm being sarcastic again. However, the ones that I heard, absolutely thought that it was their First Amendment right to be out in the middle of the freeway, blocking traffic, chanting whatever chant that they wanted to do. Nowhere in their minds did they feel that what they were doing was in any way illegal or wrong. Just let that sink in for a minute. You know, we sit there and we go, you know, get out of the freeway, get off the street. You don't have a right to do that. That's against the law. You know, we know that. But they absolutely think that they have a right to stand out there and do that. And they were all, of course, you know, chanting against anything pure and holy. They were chanting against the government. They were it's the same stuff that we've heard over and over and over. And, you know, I wish somebody had said to them, what is it that you really want? Because do you know at this point what you want? What you're out here 19 days in a row looking for? Can anybody tell me? Now, they'll tell you, well, it was over a guy who got killed by a white cop, you know, the one that was found innocent, you know, that type of thing. That's what they'll tell you. And that they don't want cops to kill black people. Again, statistically, it doesn't flesh out, but they don't care about statistics because, you know, they have an agenda. So, and part of those people probably weren't even from St. Louis. They're probably paid by George Soros. You know, who knows? I don't know. But they were absolutely shocked when they saw the police coming. It was like, oh my gosh, here come the police. Really? That's shocking, right? Then the police, what do they want to do? The police want them to end their protest out in the middle of the street. How dare they? Excuse me, Mr. Policeman, you're interfering with our First Amendment rights. And I know that sounds weird, but they actually, some people were coming really close to saying that. And then they were questioning why the police were doing that, because they have a First Amendment right to stand out in the middle of the street, which we know they don't. But anyway. And so the police, and I guess these people don't think that the police can watch the same Periscope or video on YouTube that you and I are watching. That the police, everybody else can watch, but the police wouldn't do that. The police don't know that there's a crime going on. The police don't know who was involved in the crime, because they don't watch videos, right? They don't watch Periscope. They just don't watch any of that. Well, wrong. But again, in their minds, they rationalize that that's not happening. And again, I say, how did we get here? Well, after watching that last night, I just wanted to cry. I really did. When the police got there, of course, they pushed him back, got him off the streets. And a car who had, obviously, the person in the car had just had enough, went up on the grass and didn't hit people. Came close, probably, because, people were on the freeway. So he or she came up on the grass and sped away. And you would have thought that what that car did was break the law, and how dare that person break the law, according to those protesters. They could not even understand why that car had the audacity to break the law and get up on the grass. And they were shouting at the car, "Hey, you can't do that. That's illegal. Stop that." And I'm telling you, I wish I were kidding. I wish this was all sarcasm, and it's not. And then when the police, obviously had enough, and the police had watched all of this, and the police knew that these crimes had been committed when these people were standing out in the middle of the road, they started to do what they kettled them, which is they just block them in. They block them in from all sides. And I'll tell you what, they had enough vans there to do just that. I mean, I've never seen so many police vans. I didn't know that many police vans existed in a city. But they started to block them in. And immediately these brave soldiers, these activists that have come out here for 19 days in a row, started saying, whoa, what are you doing? Wait a minute. Do you want us to leave and disperse, or do you want to arrest us? We didn't hear you tell us to disperse. You can't do this. You have no right to arrest us. You didn't tell us to disperse. We're not breaking the law. We're up on the sidewalk now. And again, these people were serious. They're not kidding when they say these things. They believe absolutely 100% that they are justified in doing what they're doing, that they're not breaking any laws by breaking the laws, and that other people can't break the law because that's against the law, and that the police officers owe them something. Oh, you want to arrest us, or do you want us to leave? We're not doing anything wrong. And chanting to the police, what's with the riot gear? There's no riot here. As if they can tell the police, why are you wearing riot gear? You don't need a gun. We're not doing anything wrong. We're just breaking the law. But, we don't think we're breaking the law. You do, but we don't agree with that. And why are you wearing riot gear? Why are you, hey, I mean, it's not like people have thrown bricks and bottles and things like that at you before, right? Right? And then this one guy, oh my gosh. This one guy who scopes all the time is always insulting the police. I mean, right on, again, right on the Periscope for everybody, the police to hear. He always talks down about these certain police. There's Lore and Romano or something like that. I can't remember the two names. I think those are it. Two cops that he absolutely hates. I mean, he absolutely hates them. And he had one cop that came over and he's like, hey, what's happening here? You're not going to arrest us, are you? And it was somebody he knew. And I'm sure they've seen this guy like 1,000 times. And this guy, by the way, he won't film anything that may be used against his friends who are breaking the law. Except he did film them out in the middle of the road. So I guess, again, he didn't think that was anything wrong with that. So that was okay. But he's saying to this police officer, hey, in the event that you want to arrest us, are you going to, you will come back and tell us, right? Before that happens. Because we don't want to get arrested. And he's like, well, this isn't my district. We don't have jurisdiction here. But yeah, sure, I'll come back. Okay, everybody, you heard it. It's on film. He said he was going to come back and tell us before they arrested us. And so this is the same guy that when he's about to be arrested, he tries to tell the police that, he's media and he shouldn't be arrested. Now, this guy is media in that he carries a camera. And it may be, I think it's a little bit more than his phone with the camera on it, but he considers himself to be media because you know why? He's independent media and he's not mainstream media. So the police are sitting there going, media? Well, no, you're not, you're not the mainstream media. You're not local press. You're not media. They didn't say that to him, but you can just almost hear what's going on in their brains when they're thinking about this guy. And then there was this police officer that came over to a guy who was standing there. He's friends with the guy who's doing the periscoping and telling the police that, they're hated and come back and tell us when you're going to arrest us. So this guy is standing there, and this one other police officer comes over and he says, hey, you're not going to arrest us, are you? Why are you arresting certain people first? It looks like that you're arresting like media first and those people that are sent here to observe. Why are you doing that? Are you going to arrest those people first? And the police officer looks at him and says, no, I'm arresting you. You're under arrest. So the guy immediately starts crying. Not really, but it was close to it. And he starts telling people, donate to this, to his website, his GoFundMe, whatever, so we can use this money to get people out of jail. It was amazing. And I have to admit that I was making some comments during the Periscope, like, arrest these people. They've broken the law. Put them in the cars, whatever. And, that wasn't appreciated by some people that were in the scope. So they placed me on a timeout because I said the word arrest, and they said that was abusive, and you had enough people that stuck together, and so they put me on a timeout. So for 1 minute, I couldn't say anything. Couldn't comment. And then this morning, I have somebody who follows me over on Twitter, came over to find me, I guess, and said, why aren't you being more supportive? Why are, maybe instead of you Republicans like to always talk against activities like this, but you won't join in. And, he's got a point there. Because I'm not going to join in to anything that's illegal. While I don't believe in the reasons that these people are out on the streets every night, well, I don't believe in their cause because, again, a man was acquitted. So I don't know what they're protesting. But even if I don't believe in what they're doing, I do believe in free speech. And I believe in their rights to go out in their First Amendment rights and protest if they disagree with something. Now, I also believe that when you're doing that, you should, A, have a permit to do so, B, follow the laws, don't break laws, don't be out in the middle of the street, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so if they wanted to go to get a permit, go to a park, have a free speech rally, you know what? I'm not going to say a word about it. That's their right to do it. But it's not their right to get out in the middle of the street, break the laws, cause everybody else who's sitting there in line to have to wait for them and not be able to move, to cause people who are perhaps in ambulances trying to get to the hospital not to be able to do that, and other things that they could be prohibiting people from doing because they want to act like fools who are breaking the law. And yes, I said it, fools who are breaking the law. I'll support your free speech rights any day of the week, but when you start breaking the law, that's where you lost me. When you start breaking the law, that's where you need to be arrested. You know, these people who want to go out with all of these causes, why aren't they, why don't you go out and do things like, protest abortions that are happening at an alarming rate? Protest the killing of innocent people. Protest the shootings in Chicago each week that aren't done by police officers. And even then, you would need a permit to do all that. But if you want to do something that's worthwhile, if you really want to make a difference, go and do something like that. And if you feel that police officers are killing, black people and just targeting them, and I heard people talking like that in the crowd. They actually believe, these people last night in St. Louis, people were talking in the crowd, they absolutely believe that police officers get up each day with the intent to go out there and kill other black people. Whether they're white cops or black cops, Asian cops, Hispanic cops, it doesn't matter. They look at them as white cops killing black people. I mean, it's amazing. And the guy was sitting there going, well, this is something that's kind of like inbred in them. This is something they learn from generation to generation. They've been taught to think this way. See, this is the same argument that people have said about the black community and how they feel about certain things. And this guy, who was a black guy saying it, is using that same analysis that he would not want used in regards to him and his, in general to his race. They feel absolutely, this guy and a couple other people that were there, and probably others, feel absolutely that this is the correct thing to say. They have a right to say it, and it's the truth. We have a lot of things in the United States that we need to look at. Least of which is, are the guns. We need to look at where people's souls and hearts have gone. Not everybody, of course, but I'm talking about people who talk like this, people who act like this, killers and all of that. We're looking at, we're wanting to put a Band-Aid on the problem. We want to look at it as that there's not some type of issue with us as people. And those people specifically that do those types of things. And I'm telling you, it amounts to what I see as godlessness. I think that's what easily explains it. How do we turn our society back around to God? How do we turn our morals around back to God? Am I saying that everybody who does that is a killer? No. And please, if you're on the left, don't try to say that I said that. I'm saying in general, in regards to a tremendous amount of issues in the United States. We need to look at that. We need to look and see how our godlessness has caused this in our society. It isn't about the guns. It's about the godlessness in hearts and souls of men and women who need to come back to God. That's where we start. That's where what we should be talking about, not gun control. It's those issues like that and how we get back to being rational and reasonable again, because we've lost a lot of that. And I think a lot of it has to do with godlessness. So when the Democrats start, we know that they're not even almost looking at the right things that they should be looking at. And when the rhinos are talking about their stuff, they're not either. But you and I know what's going on, and you and I know what needs to be done. And in our own lives and the people around us, that's where we need to start. I thank you so much for being here. Until next time, see you then. Take care.